Hello, my name is Joe Schmidt. I'm the chair of the Facilities Visioning Team, and I'm here with Lisa Kovaleski, the principal for Waukesha Catholic, and we're here to present to you the school consolidation Phase 1 options. And I'd like to turn it over to Lisa to give a little more background and overview of why we are looking at these options.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video on the proposed options for school consolidation and how we can move from 3 buildings to 2. I'd like to just take a minute or two to provide you with a little bit of history as to how we got to the point that we are at today. Several years ago, the priests at the 4 parishes of Waukesha asked me if there was a way that we would be able to get from 3 buildings to 2. It was at the early stages of their conversations in regards to collaboration and the formation of the Catholic community of Waukesha, and they were doing an analysis of all of the facilities and wanted to know if that was a possibility. In 2017, I formed a task force whose job was to look at the possibilities of how we could get that done. As our task force was working, we were also informed by the parishes at that time that they were going to need to reduce the subsidy that they provide to Waukesha Catholic for the 2019-20 school year by $175,000. At that point, I asked the priests of the Catholic community of Waukesha if we could consider moving forward with our plan to move from 3 buildings to 2, because it would be a significant financial savings for Waukesha Catholic. At that point, we also added more members from the parishes onto our Facilities Visioning Task Force, and we worked with all of the committees and commissions throughout the parishes to get their input and feedback as to how we could make this a possibility. So what we are going to be seeing today is a lot of time and energy, and I'd just like to thank all of the people that contributed to the task force and all of the committees and commissions of Waukesha Catholic that have provided input to get us here today. Before I turn this back over to Joe, who is going to share with you the 2 options, I also want to just make it clear that this is something that Waukesha Catholic would be financing. We recognize this is something that we feel is necessary for us to be able to do into the future, or something that we need to do moving into the future. And our finance committee and council feel that it's something that we need to do. So this would be financed by Waukesha Catholic, and we would not be asking the parishes to contribute.
So thank you, Lisa. Through that process, the Facilities Visioning Team has interviewed and identified an architectural partner to work with in developing these initial options you're going to see today. So our partner is Plunkett Rasich Architects out of Milwaukee. They're very familiar with educational design and especially how it works in Catholic parishes and how it is synonymous with the worship spaces and parish functions. So I'd like to highlight in the plans the existing use, where we're capturing the existing use of the current spaces at both the St. William's and St. Mary's campuses, and then present to you the K3 through 2nd grade option for St. William's, and the 3rd grade through 8th grade option at St. Mary's, and the K3 through 4th grade option at St. William's, with the 5th grade through 8th grade at St. Mary's.
And Joe, could I just stop you there before you go into the plans? One thing that I do want to share with you is that when the architects did come through, their job was to go through all of the facilities to help us determine what would be the 2 buildings that would be most effective for us to use as school buildings. So they walked through St. Joseph campus, St. William campus, St. Mary campus, and they even went through St. John Newman, even though we don't have a school campus there. And it was the recommendation of the architects that the 2 buildings we would utilize would be the St. Mary campus and the St. William campus. St. Joseph campus has served us very, very well over the past 26 years or more that we have been the Waukesha Catholic school system. However, when we're looking at the school buildings most useful educationally, safety and security, St. Mary's and St. William's were the buildings that were chosen. St. Joe's unfortunately does not have air conditioning. It's a much older building, aging. There's no playground or green space at St. Joe's, and although it served us well over the years, when we're looking at the 3 buildings we have access to, St. Mary's and St. William's were the 2 that the architects felt would be the most effective buildings.
Agreed 100%, Lisa. I think before I dive into the plans, I'll highlight the existing uses for you, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the investment will be in each campus and how that investment will be a good foundation for what the facilities visioning team is continuing to study for the long-term use of the campuses. So highlighting the existing plans at St. William's, start with the color coding just to give you some frame of reference here. So the reddish orangish color is the Catholic Community of Waukesha specific spaces. The golden color is the parish specific spaces. Blue is school use. Green is shared between the parishes and the school. And the bluish color, darker blue color, would be support or mechanical spaces, for example, within the buildings. So pulling back a little bit to the St. William's campus, we'll start in the current K4, K3 corridor, and you can see the room designations listed on here, and that's meant so that we capture who's in what rooms where, and when we get to proposed options, so that we can make sure that everybody has a home when they're in the new proposed options. Highlighting use of the school, currently, the 2 Christian formation classrooms. The current all-purpose room is used for the student lunches right now. Moving into where the current parish hall, along with parish shared conference rooms, parish office and back-of house space for the worship space, and then along with the gym and ancillary support spaces off of the gym. Onto the existing St. Mary's campus. Because of the grade changes at the St. Mary's site, we had to slice the building vertically into 4 different levels, starting at the parking lot level. So most of you are familiar with entering the church off the parking lot into the foyer and up to the church. We have the community room and the school gym. Next is the Hartwell level. So you would enter the Hartwell level and go into the parish office on the west side of the facility. And Christian formation and other parish support spaces, moving then further east into the school specials, along with then the all-purpose room where currently the students eat lunch. Next is the new hall level, where you have the church, along with then all the grade level classrooms. And lastly, you have the convent level, along with now you can see the balcony from the church entering at this level as well. The first option I'm going to take you through is the K3 through 2nd grade option at St. William's and 3rd through 8th grade at St. Mary's. But to highlight some of the investment at each campus before we get started is that there would be updates to the lighting with new LED lighting, flooring, paint, cabinetry, doors, security in the offices, the daytime entry, which I'll show you and highlight in a moment. Additional investments and upgrades to systems as needed based on what the renovation calls for. And ultimately, these investments are intended to create a good foundation for the long-term planning that the facilities visioning team is still working on as we speak. So I'm going to highlight all the some of the specific pieces of these proposed options, and then we'll move through each campus and each option. So back to where we started the existing floor plans, the current K4 rooms at St. William's would be proposed potentially as 2nd grade rooms. And again, these aren't the final locations for example, the 2nd grade classes. This is just to make sure that everyone has a home as we look through this proposed option.
So I'd just like to reiterate that the designations, classroom designations on the proposals may not be where those classrooms end up. So it might say K4 in one spot, but the K4 classrooms might end up in a different location. These are just placeholders for the time being.
Moving through then the classrooms, you can see the kindergarten classrooms along with specials. One of the main changes in the school area is the current lunchroom now is converted to the library and learning lab, along with some small group breakout spaces. One thing I will highlight with a number of these small group spaces is that the intention of those spaces is school use during the daytime, but to be available for Catholic Community of Waukesha use in the evenings and weekends. So I think Lisa correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Christian Formation will still have access to a lot of these spaces throughout
Absolutely,
the
and
weekend.
that's one of the things that we are very cognizant about as we were developing these plans, is to recognize that Christian Formation does utilize the school building, and they would still have access to all of the classrooms and spaces. But we also added a few spaces, knowing that if this is just a kindergarten through second grade building and they want to have faith formation for some of the older grades, there might need to be locations that they can meet that would have furniture and those things that would meet the needs of those older kids. So we have built in a couple of spots and spaces for Christian Formation and or parish could use for breakout sessions when school is not in session.
Correct. The next area I'd like to highlight is the current parish office area, along with the conference rooms off the parish hall. Now, in order to improve our daytime security, the proposed change is to relocate the school office, directly adjacent to the parish office. It creates a couple of benefits. Number one is that daytime visitors to the school have to enter the school and check in directly with the office before they are buzzed through a security door into the school. Along with that, there's a common front door so that parishioners and visitors can easily assess and determine where they need to go, whether it's the parish office or the school front office. There's shared conference space developed for both the school and the parish to utilize, and likely a shared copy room and workroom, along with additional support spaces for the school office.
And I just want to interrupt there, Joe, for a minute, if you don't mind. That shared conference room most likely will be primarily parish use, however, if we are able to have the proposed offices that Joe's going to show you in a moment. The other thing I also want to highlight is, even though that this is going to be the main school entrance to the school office, the students will not be entering and exiting through that entrance on the normal school day. They will be entering down at a different entrance of the building. So this entrance would only be utilized by parents and parishioners during the school day, not when kids are arriving and dismissing.
Great point, Lisa. Yeah, I'll highlight that for a moment. The current southern doors where dismissal happens at St. William's will likely or propose to be where arrival and dismissal will happen, along with your current before and after care. So trying to make things a little bit easier for entry and exit into the building.
Right, and to minimize the amount of students that would be in that narthex main entrance area.
So directly adjacent to the proposed school office would be the proposed Waukesha Catholic admin office. And one thing to highlight is there'd be 4 offices with some admin support, along with a shared conference room. And you can see the door off of the parish hall, which the parish hall would remain as primarily parish use, but there is a shared conference room potentially here for breakouts on common meeting night or whenever is necessary to be able to utilize this conference room during after hours. Since the current school lunchroom is now being used as a library, lunch would be occurring in the gym for a couple reasons. Number one, it's the largest and probably most flexible space we have in the facility, along with the most appropriate kitchen for potential future lunch program. So in order to do that, that's why we are locating that over there.
I do want to just make note, though, that there was conversation at one point of possibly using the parish hall for that lunch program. As school, we could go either way, whichever would be most convenient for the parish. We recognize that the gym actually is used more during the school hours by the parish for activities like Christmas Clearing Council, the rummage sales, and so on. So we are flexible in that as to whichever location would be most beneficial to the parish for us to have lunch.
So on to the St. Mary's 3rd grade through 8th grade option. So in this proposed option, the community room would be a shared school lunchroom. The gym would remain in its current use. We have some minor changes to circulation or the corridors down here on this level to try and make things easier coming down the stairs going into the community room for lunch or other functions.
And one thing to just make note here, because it's come up in other presentations, yes, we would have to address the flooring in the community room, and that would probably be replaced. Obviously, carpet and milk don't go along very well together, and so there would be some updates and upgrades to the community room to be able to make it function as a space for the parish as well as a lunchroom during the day for the school.
And building off of that, the current specials floor, the specials classrooms would likely remain pretty much as is, with then changes to the current school lunchroom becoming 2 new classrooms, along with a library, learning commons, and a shared conference room space. So one thing to note here is that there would be no space needed from the parish side to accommodate the 3rd grade through 8th grade program. All the parish functions would remain as they currently are. Next, on to the new hall level. This would now house all the grade level classrooms, 3rd through 8th grade. A couple things to note is that we would have a set of doors here, essentially separating the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade house from the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Both sets of classrooms have their own stair to move up and down to the specials floor, along with the fact that the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade tend to be more mobile, right, Lisa, throughout the day. So that way then there's less likely of disturbing the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Similar to the St. Williams campus, we wanted to update our secure entry to allow visitors, daytime visitors, to have to enter the office, check in at the office, versus being able to walk into the school and then have to come into the office. So this also gives us an opportunity to provide a new toilet room, health room, and some updated finishes along with in our entry area.
And I think I just would like to highlight that as a big portion of these proposals is updating the security at both of our campuses. And the Department of Justice is really asking schools to reconfigure security and entranceways, and currently our configurations that we currently have are not up to the standards that the Department of Justice would like. So we have spent a lot of time emphasizing the security and secure access into the buildings.
So just to build on that for a moment, great point, Lisa. We are in conversation with both our insurance company, with city officials to make sure that our proposed plans are meeting all current codes and requirements to ensure that the overall facilities, both school and parishes, are as safe as possible. So on to our K3 through 4th grade St. Williams option. So a couple things to highlight. You're starting to see more of these dark black lines, and what those mean are new walls added. And with that comes the potential for a little more expense in the renovation. But as you can see here, there's a number of other spaces that are going to need to become school use during the day specifically to ensure that we have the right number of grade level classrooms and specials classrooms to support the larger number of grades that would be at St. Williams. For example, the current lunchroom would now be turned into 2 K3 classrooms in a 1st grade classroom, with then some specials classrooms off of that hallway. Now again, one thing to note, these grade levels would not be, these are not the final assignments. The school would still be working through what the proposed use of those spaces are as we proceed. So next, to highlight the daytime entry, it's a little bit different because the Waukesha Catholic admin team has to be located within the school office because we need the current conference rooms for potentially art and music classrooms or specials classrooms of some use. So therefore, we need to rework the narthex sequence along with creating that shared conference room and additional support space behind the front office. So there is a little bit more footprint here for the school office and the Waukesha Catholic admin team to be able to fit them in this area of the building.
And so I would just like to highlight in this option, or point out in this option, that there would not be a parish office located in this option, as well as that conference room would be more of a shared conference room in this option and then in the previous option, because we do not have the conference room that we would have had in the first option.
And just to build off of Lisa's point, the facilities visioning team continues to work closely with both the Waukesha Catholic and the Catholic Community of Waukesha leadership to ensure that any spaces that have been potentially displaced through these proposed options have a new space to go to at one of the 4 campuses remaining. So we are working through that detail as we speak as well.
And one other thing just to highlight in this option as well, with the conference rooms needing the current conference rooms needing to be turned into classrooms, that also requires us to take even more of a closer look at security in that section of the building, because we would have students interacting more potentially with parishioners and parish life using that parish hall. So that would require us to look at security and security options a little bit differently as well.
So the parish hall would remain, again, a primarily parish use space, but to Lisa's earlier point, this would be similar to the previous option we reviewed, where the school would be comfortable using either the gym or the parish hall for their lunchroom, shared lunchroom space. At this current option, we show it shared with the gym, but again, just reiterating on the previous point on the either space could be used for lunch, school lunch. Some additional changing room space needs to be created just due to the fact that the gym is now housing more grades and potentially being used for some minor competition, just based on the number of grades that are at the campus. Moving to the St. Mary's 5th grade through 8th grade option. Pretty similar to the last option on this level, the parking lot level. The shared community room, school lunchroom, proposed shared community room, school lunchroom with the flooring updates that we discussed earlier, so similar there, along with that circulation piece adjacent to the kitchen and the gym. The gym function will remain as is. The Hartwell level, no need to take any of the parish spaces or the Christian formation spaces. Those will remain as is. The specials floor gets larger specials rooms, so art, music, band, the library learning commons, and a essentially maker space all end up with much larger spaces, along with then the grade level classroom, which supports the resource spaces on this floor with the grade level classrooms. And one of the most important features is that secure entry sequence, similar to what was discussed in the previous plan.
So the major difference between option 1 and option 2, besides obviously the grade levels that are in there, is option 2 at St. Mary's campus provides for much more flexibility and expansion of resource classrooms and those types of things. Yet at St. William's campus, we don't have as much flexibility in option 2 because we'd have more students within that campus. So a lot tighter usage of St. William's with option 2 and having much more open space available in option 2 at St. Mary's.
So one thing to highlight though at the 5th through 8th and this 5th through 8th grade option in St. Mary's is that the additional space for resource and specials allows for greater flexibility and more modern and flexible learning environments for the students long term. So this would be building a good foundation for our middle school environment, and especially with its direct adjacency to Catholic Memorial and ongoing collaboration with Catholic Memorial. This facility would be able to support the students being well prepared for their secondary experience. While the additional flexibility that's available at the St. Mary's campus in this 5th through 8th grade option is good for this campus, we do have some potential challenges at St. William's campus because of all the grade levels fitting into that space. K3 through 2nd grade tends to be adequate and appropriate. The K3 through 4 option tends to take away a lot of flexibility that the school and the parishes have for long-term options for that facility. So our goal is to make sure, again, that we're trying to create a good foundation for the long-term investments in these facilities and having an appropriate scale to this phase of renovations and consolidation.
So in conclusion, I also just want to say that we recognize and realize that by looking at these proposed changes, and if these changes were to go through, that there would be some people and committees and activities that would be displaced from their current locations. And we are very aware of that. We will work very closely with those groups and those people We firmly believe that we have space within our facilities, even in the current facilities that they're working in right now, that we can find space for those activities, etc. We will work directly with those people and with those committees. For example, some that I'm thinking off the top of my head. I know that at St. Mary campus, the Scouts use our current multi-purpose room cafeteria quite a bit. We have talked about and do have options of spaces that could be reconfigured for the Scouts to be able to use. The festival uses that space for the rummage sale. We believe that there are classrooms on the lower level that could be utilized in the summer for the rummage sale. So we understand and recognize also at the St. William campus, we do realize that if we're in the gym or in the parish hall for lunch, there will be times that we have to be out of those rooms and we might have to eat in our classrooms or a different space on those days because of a parish activity. Our goal, obviously, is to get Waukesha Catholic into 2 buildings and to be able to provide the best educational environment that we can. But we also want to work very collaboratively with the Catholic community of Waukesha and be good partners with them. And I promise that we will do everything that we can as a community to work together, that every ministry and committee and commission and group that uses the buildings still has access to the facilities.
So we appreciate you taking the time to watch the video and learn about the phase 1 that we've been working on. Thank you to the facilities visioning team, the parish leadership, the school leadership, and all of the parishioners, committees, commissions who have given us input and feedback. We look forward to your continued input and feedback. We will be posting frequently asked questions, additional facts and details on the website, so stay tuned for those. We'll continue to keep those updated.
We'll also be providing a form that you can provide feedback to us. If you were not able to be at one of our information sessions, there will be a form available for you to complete to be able to provide feedback as well. So please watch for information in regards to that. Thank you again for taking the time to watch this video, and I'd like to thank you also for your continued support as we work through this process.